Good day, Crime Talk aficionados. This is Scott Reisch from Crime Talk, and thanks for tuning in. First on the docket, some George Floyd news. Second, Ghislaine Maxwell finds out when she gets to go to court. Third, the Army confirms that the remains found were in fact that of Vanessa Guillen. An update on an old case. And finally, our dumb criminal contestant of the day. Let's talk about it. Good day, Crime Talk aficionados. This is Scott Reisch from Crime Talk, and thanks for tuning in. We are back in the Crime Talk studios from our little road trip. If you haven't already done so, we'd ask that you please subscribe, hit that like button, and as always, leave us a comment below. And don't forget to hit that little bell so that you receive notifications of when we go live or put up new content. Let's get straight to the docket. First, some George Floyd news. Well, as we all know, George Floyd and his death caused quite a stir here in the United States and around the world. And there's 4 officers that have been charged. Well, one of the 4 officers has filed a motion to dismiss via his attorney. Thomas Lane, you may recall former Officer Lane. He had been on the job for roughly about a week. And Derek Chauvin was his field training officer, the officer that he's supposed to look to for guidance as to how to handle situations on the street, because things on the street are a lot different than they are in the actual classroom. Anyone who's ever been to class and gone back to the reality knows things are usually not exactly the same way when you get out there where the rubber meets the road. Needless to say, Thomas Lane doesn't want to spend the next 40 years in prison, and his attorney, a Mr. Gray, has been rather aggressive. And he filed a motion to dismiss with the court today, basically saying through some 180 pages of transcripts of body cam videos from their first contact with Mr. Floyd through the end of it, as well as an interview with investigators. We now know that George Floyd told officers more than 20 times that he could not breathe. He exclaimed several times that the officers were killing him. He repeatedly said, "Come on, man. Oh, I can't breathe. I cannot breathe. They're killing me. They're killing me. I can't breathe. Tell my mama I love my family. They're killing me. I'm dead." Through the transcripts and from the interviews with Thomas Lane, it was determined before he was even on the ground, Mr. Floyd, that he was in physical distress. He'd been telling the officers who were trying to get him into a squad car that he was claustrophobic and he could not breathe. Through the court papers, Mr. Gray argues that now former police officer Lane, as a new officer, was taking cues from Mr. Chauvin, the senior officer who had served as a field training officer. That's basically an officer who trains rookies out on the street. And he also stated to Mr. Lane that he believed Floyd was on drugs based upon his behavior. According to now former Officer Lane, Derek Chauvin refused to turn Mr. Floyd onto his side because, as Lane listened to the field training officer and thought it made sense, because there are times when a person who is ODing or passed out 1 minute, they can come back quite aggressively if they regain consciousness. The transcripts also state that Mr. Gray refused to have Mr. Lane answer the question as to whether his actions or inactions led to the death of Mr. Floyd. A motion to dismiss at this early stage of the proceedings is very highly unlikely to be a winner. The court is going to allow this case to go to a jury, and the jury is going to decide what responsibility, if any, these former police officers had in relation to the death of George Floyd. Next on the docket, Ghislaine Maxwell gets some news as to when she's going to court. Now, Miss Maxwell was arrested late last week in New Hampshire. She's ultimately been transported to New York and to a detention facility. She is facing charges of luring underage girls to now deceased financier Jeffrey Epstein. A bail hearing as well as an arraignment will be held on July 14th. Pursuant to court orders, the hearing is going to be held via video conferencing, and Miss Maxwell will more than likely not even appear in the same courtroom as the judge and her attorneys. During this hearing, the United States Attorney will argue to have Miss Maxwell remain in custody pending trial. Obviously, the defense is going to try to have her released, arguing that she is not a flight risk. However, she has the means to travel. She has 3 passports because she holds dual citizenship with France, Britain, and the United States. And obviously, the most relevant argument is that she has known for a long time that she was under investigation and she did not flee. The defense will also argue to the court that there are less restrictive means in which to assure Ms. Maxwell's appearance in court, as well as protect the community. If Ms. Maxwell remains in custody pending trial, and if she is ultimately convicted, she will be a very unsympathetic character in custody. She will be an accused sexual offender, and if she is convicted, she will be a convicted sexual offender. She will be on the lowest, the bottom rung of the hierarchy for prison inmates, and she could have a very, very long prison sentence. This is probably one of the reasons why so many people believe that Miss Maxwell may harm herself or others will have harm done to her. It would be a badge of honor for an inmate to take out another inmate like Miss Maxwell because of her charges and the fact that she is very high profile. We'll see if the Bureau of Prisons can protect Miss Maxwell better than they did Mr. Epstein. And how could I forget? Today is day 7 of the Maxwell Suicide Watch. Before we continue with the docket, a quick recess. Ladies and gentlemen, I've been talking to you about this for a while, and I would not tell you it was something worthwhile if I didn't truly believe so. Please go to CrimeTalkSearch.com and sign up for a subscription where you can conduct unlimited searches. That's right, unlimited background searches. There's a no-risk trial. You can search anyone anonymously, and you search literally millions of public records. In one single report, you get social media, telephone numbers, email addresses, criminal background checks, whether someone's filed for bankruptcy, civil judgments, marriage records, all these things in one simple report. Go to CrimeTalkSearch.com. You will be satisfied. Next on the docket, the Army confirms that the dismembered remains are missing Fort Hood soldier Vanessa Guillen. The surviving suspect appears in court. The Army Criminal Investigation Command has confirmed earlier reports that the remains found last week in the search for a missing U.S. Army soldier belonged to Vanessa Guillen. She has not been seen since April, and finally, DNA analysis determined that the remains found near the Leon River are in fact those of Vanessa Guillen. Fellow soldier Aaron Robinson, Guillen's suspected killer, shot and killed himself in early July. Robinson's girlfriend, Cecily Aguilar, was subsequently arrested on suspicion of tampering with evidence. The suspect reportedly confessed to helping her boyfriend dismember Guillen's remains and hide the body parts near the lake in Belton, Texas. Ms. Aguilar, who's only 22 years old, appeared in federal court in Waco, Texas. There, the judge formally read the conspiracy to tamper with evidence charges against her, and Aguilar has not entered a plea. She is due back in court on July 14th for a hearing to determine if she will receive bail. Next on the docket, a follow-up on an old case. I remember this case from many, many years ago. Mary Kay Neu. She was convicted of having sex and technically sexually assaulting her student who was in the 6th grade at the time, and then fathering his child, and then another one. Well, she has ultimately died at 58 because of stage 4 cancer. For those of you who may not recall, Miss Neu was a former Seattle area teacher who was convicted of raping a student who fathered her child when he was only 13 years old. Neu wound up serving over 6 years in prison on a second-degree rape conviction after she sexually assaulted and was impregnated by her then 6th grade student. This all took place back in the mid-90s. Later that year, after she was released from prison, Neu married the student. The pair had a second child who was born while Miss Neu was in jail for violating some terms and conditions of her release. And this all while the now former student was 15 years of age. Ultimately, the couple divorced. I can't imagine why. Things didn't work out. But needless to say, Miss Neu was a trendsetter. This was one of the first cases that you heard about and was prosecuted for a female engaging in completely inappropriate conduct with a student. You hear about it literally just about every night on the evening news when it relates to male teachers being inappropriate with females. But like I said, Miss Neu was a trendsetter, a person on the cutting edge of criminal conduct. And for whatever reason, she loved her 6th grade student. I just can't even imagine. Needless to say, she has now passed away. She was a registered sex offender because that's what happens when you have sex with 13-year-olds. You go to prison and you have to register as a sex offender. Next on the docket, our dumb criminal contestant of the day. And our dumb criminal contestant of the day is Celeste Thomas. Miss Thomas is 25, and yes, she left scratch marks on the victim's shoulder while they were arguing over toilet paper in their residence. The report from the police did not offer further details of the toilet paper discord. Apparently, Miss Thomas and the victim share a home along with that of a young child. When the police arrived, and it's unclear who exactly called the police, but they noted that the victim had visible scratches on his shoulders. Therefore, the cops arrested Miss Thomas for a misdemeanor domestic battery. Miss Thomas, who is a barista, was told not to have any contact with her boyfriend by the courts. It's unclear whether the police will go forward on a case like this, since they apparently did not collect the instrument that caused the scratches, i.e. the toilet paper. However, this shows that no matter how one may engage in an argument with their boyfriend or spouse, when the police are called, someone is going to jail. Now, obviously, if people are being assaulted or there is abuse, the police need to be called. However, just remember, somebody's going to jail. I had a case once where the police were called by the neighbors who heard some arguing going on. When the police arrived, they asked if everything was okay. Both parties seemed somewhat stunned by the fact that the police were even called. Upon further questioning by the police, the victim in this particular case was asked if anything was thrown. And she said the only thing was thrown was we were arguing over money, and my husband flicked or threw the checkbook across the table and it hit her on the hand. My client was then arrested for domestic violence under a harassment factual basis. Ladies and gentlemen, always remember, if the police are called on a domestic case, someone is going to jail. Before I leave you today, I want to draw your attention to something new, something exciting. That's right, new merchandise. If you go to the link below to Teespring and our site, our store, you can check out some new designs, some new mugs, and that's right, even face masks, because I hear they're all the rage. You won't be leaving home without one. And if you're going to do that, you might as well have a Crime Talk logo on your face, on your mask. So go to the link below, have a great day, and we will talk to you tomorrow on Crime Talk.